Have you ever set a New Year's resolution with genuine excitement, only to watch it fade away by February? You're not alone. The problem isn't a lack of willpower, it's that willpower alone is a weak foundation. It's like trying to build a skyscraper on sand. This year, 2026, can be fundamentally different. Instead of relying on temporary motivation, you're going to build your transformation on the bedrock of ancient wisdom. This is a system that has weathered centuries because it works. Today, we're diving into 12 Stoic principles that will rewire your internal operating system. This isn't about quick fixes, it's about creating lasting change from within. By the end, you'll have a complete roadmap to make 2026 your year of unstoppable transformation. The first and most critical principle is mastering the dichotomy of control. Here's the truth. Most of your daily stress and frustration comes from a simple mistake: trying to control what was never yours to control in the first place. The Stoics, particularly Epictetus, divided the world into two clear categories: what is up to us and what is not. What is up to us? Our judgments, our impulses, our desires, our actions. In short, everything that is truly our own. What is not up to us? Our body, our reputation, our wealth, the actions of others, and the final outcome of our efforts. Think about it. You can control showing up for a job interview prepared and confident. You cannot control whether the hiring manager likes you. You can control being kind and honest in a relationship. You cannot control how the other person responds. The modern trap is that we pour enormous energy into the second category, chasing external validation, worrying about others' opinions, and fixating on specific outcomes. This drains your power and leaves you feeling reactive, like a leaf in the wind. The transformation begins with a simple exercise. Draw a circle. Inside it, write down what you can control: your effort, your attitude, your perspective. Outside the circle, write what you can't: the traffic, a rude comment, the stock market. Your only job is to focus your energy relentlessly on the inside of that circle. When you do this, you move from being reactive to proactive. You stop being a victim of circumstances and start becoming the architect of your inner world. The frustration you feel when things don't go your way, that's a signal that you've invested your peace in something outside your control. Once you internalize this principle, everything else we discuss becomes possible. It is the foundation. It is the first step toward true emotional freedom. Now, this next principle sounds counterintuitive, but it's one of the most powerful tools for building resilience: negative visualization, or what the Stoics called Premeditatio Malorum. It's the practice of intentionally imagining what could go wrong. Before you dismiss this as pessimism, pause. This isn't about expecting the worst, it's about building psychological immunity. The goal is to inoculate yourself against future hardship by confronting it in your mind first. Seneca advised us to rehearse poverty, loss, and even death. Why? Because when you vividly imagine losing your job, or a relationship ending, or a project failing, you accomplish two things. First, you realize that you could, in fact, endure it. This realization alone dismantles the power of fear. Second, and just as importantly, you develop a profound sense of gratitude for what you have right now. You stop taking your health, your home, and your relationships for granted. The modern application is direct. What if your biggest client leaves? What if you face a serious health diagnosis? What if you make a costly mistake? By visualizing these scenarios, you strip them of their catastrophic power. You move from a state of anxiety about the unknown to a state of preparedness. The practice is simple. Spend 5 minutes each morning with a what-if exercise. What if my car breaks down on the way to work? Okay. I'd call for assistance. I'd inform my boss. I'd problem solve. The situation is manageable. This practice builds the courage to face reality without flinching. It trains your mind to see challenges as manageable events, not world-ending catastrophes. It builds a quiet confidence that whatever life throws at you, you have the inner resources to handle it. This mental fortitude is what you'll need for the next principle, which requires you to not just endure fate, but to love it. Building on that resilience, we arrive at perhaps the most challenging yet transformative principle, Amor Fati. This Latin phrase means love of fate. It's the conscious decision to embrace everything that happens to you, not just the good, but especially the difficult, the painful, the unexpected. This is not passive resignation. It's not about shrugging your shoulders and saying, well, I guess this is my lot in life. That's defeat. Amor Fati is active acceptance. It's looking at any event, any obstacle, any twist of fate and saying, this is for me. I will use this. I will find the good in this. I will make this a part of my story. The Stoics believed that nothing happens to you, but everything happens for you, for your development. Friedrich Nietzsche, who was deeply influenced by Stoicism, later captured it perfectly. My formula for greatness in a human being is Amor Fati, that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity. Think of the mindset shift this requires. The default human reaction to hardship is, why me? Amor Fati replaces that with, what now? A job loss isn't a catastrophe. It's an opportunity to find a path more aligned with your purpose. A health challenge isn't a punishment. It's a forced lesson in patience, resilience, and what truly matters. An unexpected change of plans isn't an inconvenience. It's a chance to practice adaptability. The obstacle itself becomes the fuel for your growth. When you love your fate, you stop fighting reality. You stop wasting energy on what should have been and start engaging powerfully with what is. This is how you turn lead into gold. The frustration, the pain, the setback, it all becomes raw material for building a stronger, wiser, more compassionate self. This principle requires you to see the world not as a series of random events, but as a custom-designed curriculum for your soul. And to truly master that curriculum, you need the perspective we're about to explore next. This leads us directly to the fourth principle, which is the practical application of Amor Fati, viewing every obstacle as an opportunity. The Stoics weren't just talking about a positive mindset. They were teaching a fundamental law of nature. An obstacle is not a block. It is the way. It is the very thing that forces you to grow, to innovate, to become stronger than you were before. Marcus Aurelius, who faced endless political intrigue, war, and personal loss while ruling the Roman Empire, wrote in his private journal, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Let that sink in. What stands in the way becomes the way. The barrier is not stopping your path. It is your path. History is filled with examples of this transformation. Nelson Mandela's 27 years in prison could have broken him. Instead, he used it to develop the patience, forgiveness, and unwavering resolve that would later heal a nation. That prison cell became his training ground. In your own life, the application is just as potent. A difficult coworker isn't just a source of irritation, they are your personal trainer for patience and effective communication. A project that fails spectacularly isn't a mark of shame. It's a priceless data set on what doesn't work, bringing you closer to what does. A financial setback isn't a disaster. It's a forced lesson in resourcefulness and clarifying your true needs versus your wants. The technique is cognitive reframing. The next time you face a significant obstacle, pause. Ask yourself these Stoic questions. What is this situation teaching me? How is this forcing me to develop a skill I've been neglecting? In what way is this difficulty actually protecting me from a worse fate or preparing me for a greater responsibility? This isn't naive optimism. It's strategic thinking. It's recognizing that comfort and ease rarely build strength. It's the resistance, the obstacle, that builds the muscle. By deliberately practicing this reframe, you build a resilience that isn't shaken by life's inevitable challenges. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstance and start seeing yourself as a student of life, where every lesson, especially the hard ones, is valuable. This perspective, however, requires a level of self-discipline that doesn't come from comfort. It requires the deliberate practice we'll cover next. But this perspective of seeing obstacles as opportunities requires a certain toughness, a resilience that comfort simply cannot build. This brings us to the fifth principle, the practice of voluntary discomfort. The Stoics understood a fundamental truth about human nature. We become fragile when we seek only comfort. We lose our ability to handle hardship when we never practice handling hardship. So, they prescribed the opposite. They advised periodically and intentionally embracing discomfort. Why? To remind yourself that you are more resilient than your circumstances. To prove that you can be happy with less. To build a callus on your soul, so that when life inevitably brings involuntary discomfort, you are not shattered by it. Think of it like a vaccine. A small, controlled exposure builds immunity against a full-blown disease. The modern equivalents are everywhere. A digital detox, where you voluntarily unplug from the constant noise of notifications and social media. A cold shower in the morning, which teaches your body and mind to breathe through initial shock and find calm. Skipping a meal occasionally, not for weight loss, but to remember that hunger is a temporary sensation, not an emergency. Having that difficult conversation you've been avoiding because you know it's the right thing to do, even though it's uncomfortable. Each of these acts is a small rebellion against the modern cult of ease. They are exercises in self-mastery. When you choose discomfort, you reclaim your power. You are no longer a slave to your desire for perfect conditions. You build an inner fortitude that says, "My peace does not depend on everything being easy." This practice makes you anti-fragile. You don't just withstand chaos, you grow stronger from it. And this inner strength is what you will need to fully grasp the profound urgency of the next principle. Now, we arrive at a principle that cuts through all procrastination, all trivial concerns, and all fear. Memento Mori. Remember that you will die. This is not a morbid fixation on death. It is the most powerful motivator for meaningful life. The Stoics use this meditation not to create fear, but to create urgency and profound perspective. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." Let that sink in. You could leave life right now. When you hold this truth in your mind, it acts like a filter. It instantly clarifies what is important and what is merely noise. That argument you're holding on to, the resentment you're nursing, the project you're too scared to start, the kindness you're postponing. Memento Mori asks, if today were your last, would this matter? The answer is almost always a clear, resonant no. This principle is the ultimate antidote to wasting time. It pulls you out of pettiness and forces you to confront the finite nature of your existence. How does this look in practice? It's a daily reminder. It could be a physical reminder like a skull on your desk, a classic Memento Mori symbol, or it could be a simple question you ask yourself each morning: is what I'm about to do today worthy of my limited and precious time? This awareness doesn't lead to despair. It leads to liberation. It frees you from the tyranny of other people's opinions. It gives you the courage to pursue what you truly value. It forces you to stop waiting for the right time and to start acting now. The connection between mortality and purpose is direct. Knowing your time is limited is what makes you spend it wisely. It's what makes you choose depth over distraction, connection over conflict, and action over anxiety. This sobering, clarifying awareness is the foundation for living a life of virtue, which is precisely what we will explore next. This brings us to the very heart of Stoicism, living according to nature, which means living according to virtue. For the Stoics, nature didn't just mean trees and rivers. It meant the highest nature of a human being, our capacity for reason and moral excellence. This excellence is realized through the four cardinal virtues: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. Wisdom is the ability to navigate complex situations with sound judgment, to see things as they truly are, not as we wish them to be. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the strength to do what is right despite fear, whether that's standing up for a principle or enduring a hardship with grace. Justice is your duty to other people, to act with fairness, kindness, and in the service of the common good. And temperance is self-discipline, the mastery over your desires and impulses, ensuring you never have too much or too little of anything. The modern challenge is immense. We live in a world that constantly pulls us away from these virtues. It encourages us to seek external validation over internal integrity, to chase pleasure over purpose, to prioritize the self over the community. Living according to virtue is the ultimate act of rebellion against that noise. It's about aligning your actions with your deepest values, not your most fleeting desires. The peace that comes from this is unshakable. It's the peace of knowing that no matter what happens externally, you have acted with honor. You have been wise in your decisions, courageous in your challenges, just in your dealings with others, and disciplined in your own life. This is what the Stoics meant by the good life. It's not a life of wealth or fame, but a life of moral character. To audit your own life for this alignment, ask yourself a simple question at the end of each day. Did my action today make me a better, wiser, more virtuous person? Did I contribute more than I consumed? This daily check-in is the practice that turns philosophy into lived experience. And it leads us directly to a more structured form of that self-examination. Now, let's make that self-examination a deliberate, powerful ritual. This is the 8th principle, the practice of the evening review. Seneca, one of the wealthiest and most powerful men in Rome, ended every single day with this practice. He would retreat into silence and ask himself 3 simple, but profound questions. First, what bad habit did I correct today? This isn't about self-flagellation. It's about acknowledging a moment where you could have reacted poorly, but chose a better path. Maybe you felt the urge to snap at a colleague, but you paused and responded with patience instead. That's a victory. Second, what fault did I take a stand against? This question pushes you to identify a recurring weakness and confront it. Did you actively resist the temptation to procrastinate? Did you choose a healthy meal over a convenient, unhealthy one? This is about building the muscle of resistance. And third, perhaps the most important, how am I better today than I was yesterday? This forces you to find the progress, no matter how small. It could be that you learned something new, you showed kindness to a stranger, or you simply managed a moment of anxiety with more skill than before. The power of this review is in its compound effect. A single evening of reflection is helpful, but doing it every day, consistently, creates a relentless feedback loop of self-improvement. You are no longer drifting through life on autopilot. You are the pilot, constantly checking your instruments and making tiny course corrections. The modern adaptation for a busy life is simple. It doesn't need to be an hour-long journaling session. It can be 5 minutes before you go to sleep. Just hold those 3 questions in your mind. The act of asking them alone will sharpen your awareness throughout the day. You'll start to notice your habits as they happen, because you know you'll have to account for them later. This practice builds the kind of self-awareness that is essential for emotional mastery. You begin to see your patterns clearly, your triggers, your default reactions, your strengths. This clarity is what allows you to move from being controlled by your emotions to understanding them, and ultimately, to choosing your response. That is the crucial skill we need to explore next. This self-awareness from your evening review is the gateway to the 9th principle, developing true emotional resilience. The Stoic approach to emotions is often misunderstood. It's not about suppressing your feelings or becoming a cold, unfeeling robot. It's about creating a crucial space between the stimulus, the thing that happens, and your reaction. It's about observing the emotion, understanding its source, and then choosing your response, rather than being hijacked by it. Epictetus gave us the fundamental rule. It's not events that disturb us, but our judgments about events. The rude email doesn't cause your anger. Your judgment that this is a personal insult and an injustice causes the anger. The key is to catch that judgment before it triggers an automatic, often regrettable, reaction. The technique is to pause and interrogate the initial feeling. When anger flares up, instead of lashing out, ask, what story am I telling myself about this situation? Is this person's action truly a malicious attack? Or could it be a mistake, a bad day, or a simple misunderstanding? Is my judgment helping me or harming me? This simple act of questioning creates the space for wisdom to enter. For anxiety, the process is similar. When you feel that knot of worry about the future, ask, is this thing I'm anxious about within my control? If it is, then anxiety is useless. I should take action. If it isn't, then anxiety is equally useless. I must practice acceptance. This is emotional mastery in action. It's using your reason as a tool to manage the raw power of your feelings. Journaling is an incredible practice for this. Writing down the emotion and dissecting the underlying judgment force's clarity. It turns a chaotic internal storm into a manageable set of thoughts you can work with. This is how you build emotional muscles. You're not avoiding the feeling, you're training yourself to handle it with strength and wisdom so that life's inevitable challenges don't knock you off your feet. And this inner stability allows you to extend your focus beyond yourself to the next principle that redefines your place in the world. Once you've begun to master your internal world, you can see the external world with new eyes. This brings us to the 10th principle, practicing Sympatheia, the Stoic concept of interconnectedness. The Stoics saw the universe as a single, living, interconnected whole, a cosmos. They believed that every human being is a fragment of this universal reason connected to each other and to nature itself. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that we are made for cooperation, like hands, feet, and eyelids that work together for the good of the body. This perspective is a powerful antidote to the modern obsession with the individual ego. When you see yourself as part of a larger whole, your problems naturally shrink in size. That person who cut you off in traffic isn't just an anonymous jerk. They are a fellow human being, likely stressed, rushed, and struggling with their own battles just like you. This doesn't excuse their behavior, but it prevents you from taking it personally. It drains the situation of its toxic, ego-driven anger. The practical benefits for your relationships and your community are immense. When you operate from Sympatheia, you approach conflicts with the goal of understanding, not winning. You practice compassion because you recognize that the other person's well-being is, in a very real sense, tied to your own. In a professional context, this means seeing your colleagues not as competitors for recognition, but as teammates in a shared mission. Your success is intertwined with theirs. This is the Stoic idea of cosmic citizenship. You are a citizen of the world, with responsibilities to your fellow citizens. This broader view dissolves petty grievances and replaces them with a sense of purpose that is larger than your personal desires. It shifts your motivation from "what's in it for me" to "how can I contribute?" This sense of belonging to something vast reduces loneliness and increases a profound sense of peace. You are no longer a solitary island battling the waves. You are part of the ocean itself. And from this place of connectedness and contribution, you can approach your goals with a sense of freedom from the one thing that causes the most anxiety, the need for a specific outcome. That sense of interconnectedness frees you from the most common source of anxiety, your attachment to specific outcomes. This is the 11th principle. Focus on the process, not the outcome. The Stoics understood a fundamental truth about life. You have near total control over your actions, your efforts, and your intentions, but you have almost no control over the final result. Your promotion depends on your boss's decision. A successful project depends on market conditions. A happy relationship depends on another person's free will. When you tie your happiness and self-worth to these external outcomes, you hand over the keys to your inner peace. You become a passenger on a roller coaster of hope and disappointment. The antidote is to find your satisfaction in the process itself. The joy is in the doing. The fulfillment is in the act of giving your best effort regardless of the scoreboard. Think about an artist. If their happiness depends on their painting selling for $1 million, they will be miserable most of the time. But if their happiness comes from the act of mixing colors, the focus required to get a line just right, the simple act of creating something from nothing, then they are fulfilled every single day in their studio. That is the freedom of focusing on process. In your career, your goal isn't to get the promotion. Your goal is to do work you are proud of, to be reliable, to help your colleagues. The promotion may or may not come, but your self-respect is guaranteed. In your personal growth, your goal isn't to become a perfect Stoic. Your goal is to practice the principles each day. The progress is the point. This detachment from external validation builds an intrinsic motivation that cannot be taken away from you. Your sense of worth comes from within, from the integrity of your actions. You become like an archer, as the Stoics love to illustrate. Your job is to take aim, to hold the bow steady, to release the arrow with skill. The wind, the movement of the target, these are outside your control. A skilled archer is satisfied with a perfect shot, even if the arrow misses. This focus on the quality of your effort is what makes you unstoppable, because you are no longer demoralized by setbacks. You simply analyze the process, adjust, and try again. This relentless focus on doing the right thing day after day is what we call the discipline of action, and it's our final, culminating principle. And that brings us to the 12th and final principle, the discipline of action. This is where philosophy meets the pavement. This is the difference between knowing the path and walking the path. You can understand all 11 previous principles intellectually, but without this final discipline, they remain interesting ideas, not life-changing tools. The discipline of action is the commitment to put these principles into consistent daily practice. It's the understanding that transformation is not an event. It's a process built by small, repeated actions. It's showing up even when you don't feel like it. It's choosing the virtuous response even when the easy one is tempting. It's practicing negative visualization on a sunny day, not just when trouble hits. The key is to create systems, not rely on motivation. Motivation is fleeting. Discipline is reliable. Build habits that support Stoic living. Maybe it's a 5-minute journaling session every morning to set your intentions using the dichotomy of control. Maybe it's a weekly review where you assess how well you viewed obstacles as opportunities. The goal is not perfection. The goal is progress. Measure your growth not by whether you never get angry, but by whether you created that space between stimulus and reaction more often this week than last. The discipline of action is about closing the gap between your values and your behavior. It's making your outer life a true reflection of your inner philosophy. This is how you make 2026 your year of unstoppable transformation. It won't happen because you read this script. It will happen because you decide today to practice one principle, then another, and then another. This is the ongoing, lifelong journey of self-mastery. It's the work that turns knowledge into wisdom and intention into a life well lived. So there you have it. These 12 principles are your roadmap. They are the bedrock you can build on. The transformation for 2026 isn't about a dramatic overhaul. It's about the cumulative effect of integrating this wisdom into your daily life. Don't try to master all 12 at once. Choose one. Maybe start with the dichotomy of control. Practice it for a week. Then add negative visualization. The compound effect of this daily practice will fundamentally change your year. You have the tools to stop reacting and start leading your life with purpose and peace. The journey begins with a single, disciplined action. Take it.